have one access that's just for first responders, and you have a key lock on it, or you have a main gate that all you're going to do is blast the sirens and it's going to open up and come out, so you have to, I mean, they're going to use the main
Well,
entrance.
most often, yes, but from police, it's gonna be dependent on the tactical perspective of responding. There are times where we're going to enter quietly, and so we might use the key and go in that way as opposed to, using another system to open the gate. If it's an emergency situation, it's going to be dependent also upon where we're located at the time that we're coming in and how far we have to go out of our way to get to the other access.
It's all opticon, so you push a button anyways in the car. I mean, you don't really have to blast the horns, but.
Right, but it's just going to depend on what we need to respond to. If it's in a back corner and, I don't know, somebody armed with a gun, I'm going to look at it from a perspective of safety responding as opposed to necessarily speed.
Sure.
Where am I going to be safest in my response? So it's not a guaranteed one way or another, but primarily if it's the fastest access is the main one, we'll use it.
I'm looking at the numbers here, and I'm just trying to, I'm looking at what Michael's saying about a gated community. I know that residents like less access points into a subdivision, especially for single family, because they feel it's safer regarding crime, because there's only one way in and one way out. And the more ways that you have in and out of a development, this is what residents feel. If you've got a gated community is an upscale multifamily development, how many units would be sufficient where you require it? I'm asking staff for some guidance on that. I'm just looking at 150 isn't very many units, but
the
190.
standard from where?
Overland Park.
But do they say is encouraged or required?
No, that's,
There.
when I took that, I just tweaked it a little bit, and they used the word encouraged.
Encouraged. I think to require it,
Okay, we'll just leave it encouraged.
well, I'm good for some input here. I'm just thinking the less access points residents generally like to a development because it makes them feel safer.
There's also part 3 under that same thing where it says special safety considerations that additional access may be required by the fire department. So the fire department will review it and decide there.
All right.
Yeah, so we can just leave it as encouraged.
To me, that was the card you could play if it was a
Yeah.
special concern.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So are we okay with all of this? Okay.
Okay. And,
Building orientation to streets.
oh, did you not want to go over vehicle connection?
That's true.
Yeah.
Where do we go?
Leon.
Building organization? Or where did you? I thought-
Vehicle connection.
Okay, connections.
The development shall promote interconnectivity, i.e., it will not become an isolated island within the surrounding community. To reduce vehicle congestion and offer greater connectivity between adjacent residential and other uses, the following standards shall apply. The internal drive system shall access the perimeter public street system to provide multiple direct connections to and between local destinations, such as parks, schools, and shopping. The internal drive shall access the perimeter public street system to provide for both intra and inter-neighborhood connections, i.e. so that separate developments are knitted together rather than forming barriers between them. Accordingly, the internal drive system shall provide vehicle connections other than primary vehicle connections to each adjoining residential or collector street. And developments exceeding 5 acres require a minimum of 1 through access drive, which typically will be a private drive, but may be a dedicated street with attached sidewalks and landscape planting strips between the sidewalk and curb. The through access drive shall be continuous through the site and connect with the perimeter public street on either end. The design of the through access drive shall be consistent with and aligned with residential drives, or through access drives in adjacent or existing or planned development sites. So in order to make that all clear, 'cause I know that was clear as mud, turn over here to site design. There's a tiny picture. I have a larger picture in there. Can I see that instead? I blew that one up a little bit, so
Where are we looking, what page?
we're looking
Go
on
back a
page
page.
2.
Go back one page.
Tiny on yours. This one I can pass around. I blew it up a little bit more. Here we have a residential development. We have a shopping development. We have something else going on here. This is more pedestrian circulation. Where's my picture for my?
I think we can, can I start with the last one, work backwards, we look through that?
Why don't you draw something on the?
Well, last item on there, we can do that, last item on there, talks about lining up drives, access drives, so that means there's an apartment complex on one side of the street, and this one comes in, that they have access drives that line up, that, you know, it's not accessing off to some other direction, and there's no connectivity between the two. That's the idea, is that wherever your primary access drives, it doesn't, and it even says here, it does not have to be necessarily primary access drives, because it has accesses that somehow will connect with other developments immediately adjacent to it.
So
We currently have connectivity standards in our current codes.
Not really. No,
It's
it is.
encouraged, I don't think it's required, but connectivity
Well,
is
this is still
encouraged.
encouraged, it's not.
This is, I don't have a code book with me, but this isn't that different from what we currently say we want connectivity to other subdivisions, connectivity
Yeah.
to, not necessarily
And
shopping.
this is more specific that if you have access drives that they align, we encourage that now, exactly. They're not offset to a major road. And again, if they're, let's say, you know, it's a crossroads of two major roads, yeah, that, there's that, but yes. That, for example, D1 and D2 are not just accessing that road on the bottom there, but they're accessing the same one as, what is S? The
Shopping.
center? That they're accessing that as, does that make sense? So that, let's say it's north-south there on the left side. There you go.
So they can get to the shopping, so
Yeah,
you're
exactly.
encouraging them
There's
for
that
connectivity.
internally, yes, if it works that way, but also if you look at the perimeter, is what we're talking about. Yeah, exactly. That they're not, you know, D1 and D2, for example, aren't just connecting to that south road,
Right.
and there's nothing on the east and west, so you have to make this whole loop around to go to the shopping center. That if you just go on that north-south road on the left side there, that you can hit, you can go to D1 or you can go to shopping.
This is typically how it's arranged today.
No, I guess where I'm wanting Scott to address is, I know
There's
that we
no
require them to stub out, you know that's true, Michael, that we currently, this isn't
Oh,
so
yeah.
radical from our current codes, because if you're building a development, we require you to even stub out to future plans for future development. So the
Right.
connectivity we currently even have in our codes. This isn't a radical idea that you're.
No,
putting in.
the concept, exactly, is still there.
The concept is there, it's not used a whole lot though. I think.
Well, it's not as comprehensive as what this
Right.
is saying.
This is
Yeah.
explaining it out in more details, but
Exactly.
guess what
More
I'm trying to
detail
say
about
is.
perimeter
I think-
roads and more, because we're talking about larger developments that have internal drives. And yes,
Yeah.
we kind of address that even with single-family residential, that you have to connect to the parcel next to you that's undeveloped.
And stub it out and have it ready to go.
Right? Sure, why not? But,
Do you implement a pretty picture on that in here?
yes, we can certainly do that.
Oh, yeah, but in
But then
fact,
again-
I'll just take a picture of this and put it right in.
For example,
I might be able to do just a tad bit better.
well, you have on the west side there, it's say, you know, that north-south road. If there was another, let's say D3 on the other, you know, on that paper, draw it on the paper. There you go. A D3 there, further south, actually, sorry. Sure. That one connects to D1, you know, at the same location. See that? Yeah, exactly.
Could staff pull up, just for our next meeting, or even just email us? I guess that the question is asked by the city council if this is a departure from our current codes.
No.
I just,
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
I would like to have
Yep.
just our current codes compared to this.
Sure.
I don't think it's drastically
No,
different
it's
from our
not. It's
current.
not.
Basically, what you're saying is it reinforces what you already have.
It spells it out a little
Yes.
more clearly.
So it's getting things like that, but